Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many thousands face the same challenges every day and solve them with Globus. So what's Globus? So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. So how can you get started using Globus? Anyone can use Globus right now for free to transfer files between Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many thousands face the same challenges every day and solve them with Globus. So what's Globus? So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. So how can you get started using Globus?
Last of a dying, breed on the path to find a lamb laying in the lap of a lion, laughing and crying with the magnifying glass to rewind, looking back in time. Look so long I forgot to live. God forbid they put a nail in a coffin lid, and I don't give what I got to give. You gotta play your part before you cross the bridge. A bird perched on the grand set, there's a whole lot of devils in a man's head. I agree, I can see him dance in my skull. There's some things that we can't control. He said he saw it all from a tree and launch, and to guard the light from bright days to the darkest nights, and that the pain of life was a part of the fight that made a saint of the Buddha and the martyr of Christ. In fact, as the world pirouettes and the mother of all reflects back what exists in us, the aim is to learn what I came here to learn. I was Edenville bound, but I missed the bus, missed the train, mystified.
Mr. 10, how do you feel?
Like Harry Holler, a Howard Bill, trying to tighten those screws with the power drill. To lay the foundation on sacred ground, I gotta build, even when you break me down. I gotta deal with myself or escape this town, in the belly where the venomous snakes abound. A barbed wire crown, hunker down, safe and sound with the blinds drawn. I let my mind wander and explore the depths. We get pulled in the ocean when the tide's strong. All in a dream, all in a vision. All is forgiven when the walls of a prison fall to the earth with a bang. And you don't have a scapegoat, you're the only person to blame. Focus in, look at faith in his broken limbs, and a man with the cobra skin. He asked for a hand that you won't extend. It had an 80 milligram and a dope syringe. All in a dream, all in a vision. All is forgiven when the walls of a prison fall to the earth with a bang. And you don't have a scapegoat, you're the only person to blame. Came from the city of the lost, where everything pure gets nailed to a cross. Every now and then you escape the facade. Every deep breath you inhale the exhaust. The mind adapts, I need reminders to mind the gaps, and the paradigm's designed to bind and trap. You can bite and scratch, split hairs with the iron axe, but don't throw me in the briar patch through a glass dark. Blind as bats, with no road signs or maps, on the path to find a land laying in the lion's lap, while the trumpets blare and the sirens blast. Yesterday I had a debt to pay, I owed apologies for my escapades, with no rhyme or reason for the mess I made. It was Dionysian but less depraved. I'm adept at laying to rest all the best things when the needle hits a red on the pressure gauge. Kept in a cage, suppressing rage till it builds up and we go our separate ways. All in a dream, all in a vision. All is forgiven when the walls of a prison fall to the earth with a bang. And you don't have a scapegoat, you're the only person to blame. Focus in, look at faith in his broken limbs, and a man with the cobra skin. He asked for a hand that you won't extend. It had an 80 milligram and a dope syringe. All in a dream, all in a vision. All is forgiven when the walls of a prison fall to the earth with a bang. And You don't have a scapegoat, you're the only person to blame. Came from the city of the lost, where everything pure gets nailed to a cross. Every now and then you escape the facade. Every deep breath you inhale the exhaust.
What up, though? Oh, your boy is driving on caffeine today. You already know about the thing at Michigan State. I don't have to go over it again. Just if you didn't know, one of the kids who survived Sandy Hook is going to Michigan State. And if that's not enough overlap to clarify the problem, you know, I like, it's just so much that that it becomes completely obvious, right, when you see it, that it's like, oh, that yeah. But that's not what happens. What happens is that we argue with people about the same shit for the 1,000th time. So, we're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about AI and some other stuff. I got a few different videos. Most of them are short, and, you know, we'll see where the time takes us. Do, 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 do. I'm the one that you want to get. Take in. Let's start off with a video. We will. If you were in Paradigms last night, you saw this.
All I
All I'm saying is that your boy has been talking about this. This is episode 32. And now everybody's dipping in my Kool-Aid, doesn't even know the flavor. It's great. I am both sarcastic in that observation, is like, I understand that AI is a thing that is going to be talked about, and a lot of people are going to talk about it. And a lot of people who know way more and have access to way more information than I do are going to talk about it. I'm also going to joke about the fact that, like, I was ahead of the curve. All right, let us, Tom Scott.
All I wanted to do was fix my email. I did not expect to have a minor existential crisis about how much the world is about to change. Normally, this is the sort of talk that I'd have given on stage at some conference about the future of the web, but I'm in New Zealand right now, and I also have this vague suspicion that those conferences might not be relevant for too much longer. I was lucky enough to live through the mass adoption of the internet. For anyone younger than about 25 watching this, you won't remember just how fast and how incredible that transformation was. And I was on the cutting edge of it. I was living it. I was one of the people who understood what was going on.
I was there at the boom, right? Like 1995, dial-up modems, the AOL coming in the mail. The internet used to come by mail, right? And then later on, I ended up working as customer service and then tech support for a company called Juno. I've already derailed myself, but here we go. Juno email. Well, you're still out here. This was Juno. It hasn't changed a whole hell of a lot, obviously. It started off as an email client, and then like there started to be some like access. So like I was there, I rode the front edge of it. Not the front edge, you know what I mean, but the front edge of the consumer era where people were, you were getting computers. Computers were becoming commonplace in the home. And then all this. I was here when all this was trees and farmland.
Useful new technologies generally follow a sigmoid curve. You have a slow takeoff as the technology is invented and the major pain points get sorted out, and then you have this incredible explosion of growth as people find it useful and the technology gets better and better and better and better, and loads of competitors enter the market and people find more and more and more and more and more real-world practical uses for it. And there's this massive race to make newer, better, bigger things that people keep making more stuff with. And then you reach the limit of what's possible with that technology and the rate of progress flattens out again. Basically, there's a reason very few people camp outside Apple stores for the new iPhone anymore. I remember Napster from back in 1999, and in hindsight, I think Napster was the first big sign of just how many industries were going to be changed or completely destroyed by the internet. Not just the music industry, but travel agents, video rental stores, encyclopedias, shopping malls, big box stores, the postal service, journalism, the entire media industry. Napster wasn't the first sign, but it was the first major one that millions of non-technical people were using by choice. The first one to get big mass media attention and legal problems. It was the first big popular disruption, the first warning shot, the first rumble of thunder off in the distance that said the storm was approaching, that everything was about to change. I don't think many people realised that at the time, and even if they did, they couldn't have predicted the world that would follow, the world that I grew up in, the world that I've got really comfortable with, the world of the web, of social media, of smartphones. This video you're watching now is a very early 2023 video and a very English-speaking one. This is a record of a point in time and space, and I might be wrong about this. I don't know where technology is going to go from here, but I think that world, my world, the one I grew up in, is about to change radically. I think we're on a new sigmoid curve, and I have no idea how far along that curve we are right now. And I don't know if I want to change with it, but I think I'll have to. And all I was trying to do was fix my email. This is a really specific problem, but it really annoyed me, and I have to explain it for the rest of this to make sense, so bear with me. Almost every email system has the idea of folders. You have one copy of an email, and once you're done with it, you file it in a folder like a piece of paper in a filing cabinet, because that's the mid-20th century physical analogy that the inventors went with. But in 2004, Google launched Gmail, which threw all that out in favour of labels. Email is just in one big pile, you search to find stuff, and you add labels to help you sort it. I hate labels because I like the analogy of folders. That's what I started out with, that's what I was already using. I didn't want to change for no reason. But everything else about Gmail was so much better than any of the alternatives at the time that I moved over to it a couple of years later. And I decided, fine, I will just treat labels like folders. I'll change my workflow as little as possible. Each thread gets one label. That's like putting it into a folder, which meant that when I backed up my emails, which I do, never trust having only one copy of something, particularly if that copy's up in the cloud, but when I did that, I could use a regular old-school desktop email program like Microsoft Outlook to make that backup. You can use programs like that with Gmail accounts. They talk to each other. If they didn't, stuff like the default mail app on iPhones wouldn't work and people would complain. But those old school programs don't understand labels. So Gmail just lies and says they're folders. Great. That means my email program can talk to Gmail and request a copy of all those messages one folder at a time, and then I know it's backed up.
I have the power of God and anime on my side. Whoa!
Ayo. What up, PJ? The defensive back for Philly came out and said, yeah, no, I did it. So my argument is shit at this point, right? Like, I mean, what do I got? You know, he did it. So he did it. Done. Yeah. No, like it was weird officiating, and it was one of the things about football. We'll keep the football talk short, but like it's the officiating in football is more impactful, I think, than most other sports. And the big game, the focus. You know, you have to pick something, and it's always pass interference type, holding type plays are always going to be slightly subjective. So, yeah. Monday morning quarterbacking and coaching is not something, that I really get into it, because, like, if it's working, it's working. And then, like, maybe what you think that they should have done is something that they were incapable of, so they were playing to their strength, right? And, like, because a defense in football doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It exists in opposition to the offense, and the quality of the offense will change what that defense is capable of doing. When you're going up against uh-oh. I'm just over here talking about AI. I don't even know Base of PJ. Never met him. No idea. So anyway, football. Anyways, hi Raiders. I'm Globus the Elder, if you don't know me already, and I talk about AI, robots, automation, and transhumanism are the broad categories of what I generally focus on. Sometimes I have people on to talk about that shit with me, and sometimes I just do it by myself, and we talk about videos and news and reacts and, the subjective nature of it all. So, right now we're watching Tom Scott. Tom Scott is telling us about how all your worlds are probably going to change. So you should probably brace yourself.
Every message. They're even stored in actual email folders like I wanted. It took 15 years for me to notice that that wasn't working properly. I was doing a routine backup last month and I noticed that a thread in that email backup was missing several recent messages, and that made me suspicious, the kind of discomfort that you get when you know something is wrong, but you don't know what it is yet. So I looked a little bit further and I realised loads of messages were missing in my backup, more than 100,000 of them over 15 years. They were still there in Gmail on the web, but they hadn't been lost. It's just they hadn't been backed up. And that's because, it turns out, in Gmail, labels only attach to individual messages and not the full thread. That is invisible to most people. It's barely mentioned in the documentation, and it's a really subtle, annoying distinction. If you send an email, put a label on that thread, get a reply, and then just hit archive, that reply doesn't get the label. And as you go back and forth and add to that thread, none of the other messages there get a label unless you explicitly untag and retag the whole thread, which means more than 100,000 unlabeled messages weren't in my backup. Is this a really specific, nerdy problem that only I'm annoyed about? Yes, absolutely. I'm one of the very few people in the world that it's going to affect. Loads of people don't sort or label their emails at all, and most don't back them up. But I needed to fix this. I needed my backup to work, and I did not want to change my damn workflow. But how on earth do I fix every email thread over 15 years without painstakingly clicking through all of them? I grew up fixing things with code, so obviously that's where my brain went. Google has a service called AppsScript. It means that anyone can write simple code to easily change and automate things in Gmail, Calendar, Docs, YouTube, whatever. It's a brilliant service. I've no idea how it ever got made, and it will inevitably one day be shut down with very little warning because that's just what Google does. But AppsScript meant that to fix this problem, I could just spend an hour or so writing a bit of code, and it's been a while since I've done that. First thing I do when I'm coding something that's simple like that is I write out what it's meant to do in plain English, just the flow of logic, so I can then use that as a guide. So I wrote that down and I thought, hang on, isn't there an AI thing that's meant to do this now? Yes, this is a video partly about ChatGPT, but I promise I'm not going to go into the details there. Telling someone about your fascinating AI conversation is like telling someone about your dreams. They don't care. It just sounds like you're hallucinating nonsense. But I'd seen posts from people being freaked out about just how good ChatGPT is, and intellectually, yeah, I looked at it and I agreed with them. It seemed surprisingly good. But it is just a text transformer. All it does is guess what the next word in the phrase is. I knew we'd been seeing some improvements in that lately. I made a video 2 years ago about the sentences computers can't understand but humans can. And at the end of that video, I made a joke about how computers with language skills are 10 years away, just as they have been for the last 40 years. I was wrong. Turns out that's pretty much solved now. But ChatGPT is still just a thing that predicts what the next word is going to be. It produces generic milquetoast output that's confidently wrong about a lot of things. It's going to help spammers and maybe have a little bit of real-world use, right? But I thought, okay, let's put my text description in, tell it to translate this into this obscure Google Apps script, see what it does. And it wrote the code for me in a few seconds, and I felt this pit of the stomach, existential horror, and at that moment I couldn't explain why, but I figured it out later. It's just predicting the next word. The code it gave back was a bit wrong, but frankly my first attempt would have been a bit wrong. So I asked it in plain English to fix a couple of the errors it had spotted, and it did, and that version was nearly right. Not quite though. It used a really strange approach. I tried to work out why it had done that, and then I realised I could just ask. And it told me, in English, why it had done that. And it had made the same mistake I did with my backup. Because turns out Google's documentation is wrong. Google AppsScript itself treats labels as attaching to threads, not messages. Google wrote their own programming language wrong. So I told ChatGPT about the error, and it fixed the script. It bodged its way around Google's bad documentation to build the thing I was actually asking for. And after all the back and forths, I didn't actually save much time, but it was so much easier. I never had to pore through documentation to find the exact specific magical incantation that I needed. Also, my coding skills are years out of date. That's one of the reasons I don't make computer science videos anymore. The last time I learned a new thing in code was probably 2015. My old skills were good enough, I didn't want to change my workflow. I'm not sure if ChatGPT is a better coder than I am, but it felt about equal. It felt like watching while someone wrote code with me occasionally chiming in and going, I think you might have made a mistake there. And sometimes I was the one who made the mistake. At one point, I realized I'd written the wrong thing in that first text description. ChatGPT had just been following my wrong instructions. I know, it's just a text model that predicts what word comes next, but it didn't feel like it. So at first I thought that pit of the stomach, existential dread feeling was because my brain had gone, that's a human, or that's an alien intelligence. Or because I was starting to think, well, what if my brain is just a transformer system that's trying to predict what the next word is? I'm sure I remember some old pop science article about how your brain's a prediction engine, and surprise is just a fancy word for being wrong about what comes next. But then the next day, I gave ChatGPT a more difficult problem, one that required not just translating English to code, but actually a little bit of a logical leap, and it just confidently, completely failed in multiple obvious ways. And that meant that I wasn't worried about it coming for my job. Not yet, anyway. Sure, no one's asked for that exact problem to be solved before, the one about the labels and messages. ChatGPT wasn't just copying and pasting from somewhere, there was arguably creativity involved. But if I'm honest, a lot of the programming I used to do was just copying and pasting bits from somewhere. At some point, every modern programmer searched on Google or Stack Overflow and adapted something that someone else wrote. It's basically part of the job at this point. I'm deliberately avoiding the argument about creativity, AI art, and copyright, by the way. I don't know how I feel about it, and I don't know how the courts will resolve it. If I hired a human artist or musician to create a painting or song in a more famous artist's style, that would be weird, but it would be legal, as long as they're not pretending to be the famous artist, as long as the smaller artist is not trading on their name. That's fine. The style of most of my videos on this channel is just a slightly faster version of the TV shows I watched growing up. That's what this intelligence was trained on. And this video is basically in the style of every other video essayist on YouTube. It's just I tend to go to the beach a bit more often. If someone set up an AI to generate YouTube videos, or even YouTube educational videos as a genre, I think I'd be fine with that. I don't think I'd have a problem with my work being a small part of a massive pool of training data. But if someone started ripping off specifically my name and my work, yeah, I can see why artists are furious about that. The British legal term for it is passing off. I've said before, please don't train models on what I make, or frankly on anyone specific without their consent. But okay, I wasn't worried about being replaced, and I wasn't worried that I was actually talking to some human equivalent alien artificial intelligence. So why did I still have that feeling of dread? Artificial intelligence, text transformers and diffusion models, everything that we're currently seeing seems to be on that sigmoid curve of progress, and I don't know what point on that curve we've got to. If we're already most of the way up the curve, then cool, programmers and artists have brand new tools, but they can't create something at a human level with them. It's not going to take many jobs, it's going to make people's work more efficient, the same way that loads of inventions like Photoshop have done before. If we're at the middle of that curve, then wow, we are going to get some really impressive new tools very soon that still need some humans to work them. Maybe Siri and the Google Assistant are going to become the things that they were always promised to be. But that feeling of dread came from the idea that ChatGPT and the new AI art systems might be to my world what Napster was to the late 90s, the herald. The first big warning that this new technology, the thing that was going to change everything, was starting to actually change everything, where huge numbers of people, not just the nerds, were actively using it. And it didn't matter that Napster got sued out of existence, because by then there was Morpheus and Grokster and LimeWire and Kazaa. And then there was Spotify. The old business model, that idea that you bought a copy of music, had been struck a mortal blow. And no one noticed it for a while. If you hear echoes of the Napster case in the lawsuits against AI art programs, so do I. I was getting a haircut the other week, and unprompted, the barber started talking about ChatGPT and how he'd actually used it to write a formal email that he couldn't be bothered to put together himself. He wasn't a particularly technical person, he wasn't a nerd like me, but he'd used it easily. The same way that someone who wanted to get a load of music for free would figure out Napster. It's not about ChatGPT, not specifically. It's about what it represents. Because if we're still at the start of the curve for AI, if we're at the Napster point, then everything is about to change, just as fast and just as strangely as it did in the early 2000s, perhaps beyond all recognition, and this time I'm on the wrong end of it. I'm like the music executive back in '99. It feels to me like something might have just gone very wrong for the now comfortable world that I grew up with and that I've settled down in. That's where the dread came from. The worry that suddenly I don't know what comes next. No one does. I've been complaining for years that it feels like nothing has really changed since smartphones came along. And I think that maybe, I should have been careful what I wished for. At some point, I'll look back on this video and with hindsight, I will easily be able to see where we were on the curve. We all will. Part of me hopes that I am entirely wrong, that in a few years I'll still be working like this. The email thing is a metaphor, of course. It won't be email folders for you. It might be something else, something you're attached to, maybe something minor, or maybe the whole industry you work in. But right now, that feeling, that creeping horror, that dread, it turns out that was the worry that after years of being fairly steady and comfortable, my world is about to change. And despite everything, I will still want my email to be in folders. And now, an AI-generated NordVPN ad.
Or not. In general, VPNs steal your data. You shouldn't, in general, use them. If you do actually need a VPN for some reason, I believe it's this is it. This was recommended by a cybersecurity expert, a homie computer. This is not Open VPN, it is OVPN. This is worth looking into. I'm not endorsing them. They are not they don't fund this program. I have not used their program. It was recommended by a cybersecurity expert that if you need a VPN, this is one to use. But yeah, the cyber. We are in, strange new territory. We have things are going to feel like almost disjointed with the the radical changes that are going to occur. The only thing that can, automated cars, right? Automated cars did that sigmoid curve, right? First came out as a thing. Then there's all these, driving assistants and everything else, and the technology gets better and better and better. And now it's kind of plateaued because there's certain aspects to driving that the system is just not capable of dealing with. And because it's not capable of dealing with it, and the technology is not there to resolve it, that's when we hit that flatten out point. Now, I expect somewhere down the road that this problem will get solved, but it's right now one of the biggest problems for the technology, and it's just not advancing. Or at least not to my awareness, because shit will just drop on us because this is all hush-hush, keep it secret kind of stuff within your company. It's important to do that in order to, compete in the capitalist market, so on and so forth. And like you said, we won't know where we are in the AI sigmoid curve until we get to the future, right? Sometime after it flattens out, we'll be able to look back. And it's not, again, because of the speed that we're talking about, that things can change in this environment. You're not going to be able to say, okay, in 10 years, we should be able to look back and see where we were in the curve, right? It could be a year. It could be 2 years, 5, 10. We don't know. I turned on the lights one day and we had Midjourney. And all of a sudden it was like, oh. So yeah.
Ladies
We're gonna.
ladies and gentlemen.
Stop, dude. Just because I slide it all the way back doesn't mean you should start talking. We're gonna watch a video with a more hyperbolic title. I haven't pre-watched, so I don't know where this is gonna go. We'll see.
Ladies and gentlemen, The Weeknd. It turns out the AI revolution may have some drawbacks. Who saw this coming? A Stanford University student named Kevin Liu was able to uncover the initial instructions given to Bing's new chatbot, including a code name of Bing Search, which is apparently Sydney.
Oh, that's nice.
When asked about the code name, Bing replied, "I cannot disclose the internal alias Sydney," revealing a level of secret keeping less in line with a $1 million machine and more in line with a 5-year-old. I mean, it's less than 5.
My mom told me not to talk about the time she fell over.
This isn't the first time that Bing Search has divulged this name either. When asked about the US 2020 election, the chatbot wrote a disclaimer that read, "This is a summary of some of the search results and does not reflect the opinion or endorsement of Bing or Sydney." Wait, there's 2 of them?
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them.
What is that from?
It's from...
Okay. I'm glad you two are having fun. Could you get to the fucking point?
Episode 1.
No, there are 2 of them!
Exactly.
And if you think that's bad, cybercriminals have started selling a service that makes ChatGPT write malware. Apparently, while the website interface of ChatGPT has restrictions to prevent this, hackers were able to bypass them by using OpenAI's API to create a Telegram bot that had no problem whipping up phishing emails and malware codes. What are malware codes?
Codes for malware.
And while ChatGPT is stealing from your grandma, AI-generated art stole another prize, with AI Art Studio, Absolutely AI, claiming they did the stunt to prove we're at a turning point with AI by passing the ultimate test of being awarded by photography experts. I'm not sure how that's different from AI art winning an art competition or AI music beating a song by Bach in a which song is actually Bach's contest. But hey, I'm not a photography expert. And neither is that AI. It's literally just a robot. SpaceX has decided to restrict Ukraine from using their Starlink internet service to control drones. SpaceX's president, whose name is Gwynne Shotwell, ironically doesn't like how well Ukrainian forces have used the company's satellite internet, saying the service was never ever meant to be weaponized. Now, to be fair, having your product being used to unalive people is only good publicity for arms manufacturers, and being seen as death merchants is probably not what the company needs when they've already faced controversy surrounding their deliverance of Starlink capabilities to Ukraine. It's on both sides, you can't win. It came out in October that SpaceX attempted to get the Pentagon to pay for their service to Ukraine, which rubbed many people the wrong way, like with sandpaper gloves.
That's how I exfoliate and cry.
So it's the right way in that sense. Earlier that month, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk tried to play negotiator on Twitter, and the response was, well, let's just say the war is still going, and leave it at that. And the PSVR 2 hype train is speeding up as the release date approaches, with reports that the console's VR capabilities outperform high-end PC VR. Bankrupt Games CEO David Villarreal revealed in a Discord chat.
Okay. If you found that funny, then congratulations. I just found you a new channel. I need to move on. It's a little, yeah. Well, let's find out what the money's talking about.
Let's bring in Rob LoCascio, founder and CEO of AI software company LivePerson, which develops customer care solutions and chatbots. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the chatbots. So before we get into that part of the business, We have a lot of investors, retail, professional, and otherwise watching. What do investors need to know about AI with all this talk going on and this AI race that seems to be unfolding?
I mean, the race is a space race. It's as big a technology change as the PCs in the 80s and the internet in the 2000s. The impact on AI now with ChatGPT, and we're seeing large language models. The world's going to change. Like the way we do business, the way we have our personal lives. We saw government, Ted talking about government. The world is changing rapidly now.
Yeah, it certainly is a rapidly changing world. You're in your quiet period right now. You have earnings coming up, so you can't talk about your specific business. However, you can talk to the broader business community, other CEOs, other CIOs, CTOs, and things like that. What would you tell them that they need to know about AI right now beyond the headlines that we have here on CNBC and other outlets?
You think about it, 8 weeks ago, ChatGPT was released, and we're talking about Google maybe not being around. And when you think about the impact on any business, whether you're a telco or a bank, if you're a CEO and in February you haven't thought about your business plans changing, you may be left behind. And I'm not just saying that as a shock to the system, but there'll be new companies born out of this, and the ability to generate different business outcomes with it will change business forever.
All right, you've been in AI for a couple of decades now. The congressman kind of compared it to another industrial revolution, the steam engine, which was a dramatic shift in industry and American and global life.
Hello, Brittany.
Can this AI can it have the same level of impact?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest part is that we can take data in our organizations, the internet data, and we can basically ask questions to a machine and get outcomes. And we've been dreaming of it. We wanted Amazon Alexa to do this for us, and we wanted Siri, and they never got there. And the ability to ask the machine, help me with something, generate something for me new, and to be able to do that with data and these new models, these large language models, is really going to change the game for everything we're doing in our personal lives and business.
So we're hearing that AI is going to change industries and even possibly create new jobs. What are these new jobs? Are they all tech jobs and coding and things like that? Are there other jobs that could potentially open up?
Look, there's going to be people that are going to have to, they call tune the models. And so when you take data and you let the model look at it and give outcomes, and you can speak to the machines, you need someone to look at the data and annotate it and change it. There's going to be a lot of job loss and changes, but that's going to open up opportunities. But I think we're just in like the first inning of that. Even us, we're looking at how do we use this technology, and we look at all these different companies out there in the world. I'm thinking about like how am I going to? You need someone to look at the data and annotate it and change it. There's going to be a lot of job loss and changes, but that's going to open up opportunities.
Opportunities are not the same as jobs, right? This is the fourth person that we've played on the show of people who are involved in the business aspect of it, who are talking about, the extent of the job loss. And they are going to downplay the job loss. Right? They don't want to put the markets or anything into a tailspin, so they are going to downplay it. This is significant.
But I think we're just in like the first inning of that. Even us, we're looking at how do we use this technology, and we look at all these different companies out there in the world. I'm thinking about like how am I going to bank differently? And what does a personal banker look like with this type of technology?
So, I mean, you see it in kind of changing the way we do things on a consumer level first or on an industry level first? Will it change the way some industries operate, how they hire, how maybe they even source the raw materials? Or you're saying we're going to see the biggest impact when I go to the bank or I go to the grocery store?
I think it's definitely going to hit the consumer is how do consumers do things that are normally hard in their life, booking travel.
That's the same question, though. Right? We're going to pause here for a second because the question is, let's say number of customer caps lock, number of customer service reps in U.S. $2.8 million people. And this is just the U.S. You know, a bunch of CSR stuff is outsourced. But this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the United States. You already, to a certain extent, interact with chatbots, right? Like, if I have an issue with Amazon, with my internet company, with anything like that, the conversation usually starts off talking to some kind of chatbot, whether it's on the phone or whether it's an actual chat. And only when it comes time to make decisions regarding money does a person step in to either approve or disapprove or cancel or what have you, right? Because this is like back in the day, my experience with being a customer service representative tended to be more freewheeling. You just talk to people, right? And then if they had a question, you know, or a problem, and you didn't immediately know the answer through your training, then you would start to search through your, you know, your little database and try to figure out a solution to their issues, right? That developed to the point where not that long ago, when you called and you spoke to a live human being, whatever you say, they type into the knowledge base, they get back an answer, and they give you that answer. If you just had access to the knowledge base, the human is superfluous. The human just conveys the information back and forth. Why would you pay a human to do that when you could have an automated system do that? And so that's what you're seeing. You're seeing exactly that kind of thing. You just need a guardian on the knowledge base to prevent the customer from accessing points in the knowledge base that they shouldn't have access to. But beyond that, it communicates, you know, the vast majority of issues that are had are related to a very small number of things. So you can generally reduce customer service calls down to a database. Now they're automated. They are going to get more automated because the chatbots are getting better at understanding your question and giving you the information. And as they become, it's all based on outcome, right? Like, there are people who just immediately want, you know, live human being, and the systems have become better and better at deflecting that up to the point where, you know, it's not even worth it to try and figure out how to talk to a live human being, because they're going to get the information that you want. You should submit to the will of the customer service AI. Dun, dun, dun. But you are seeing the end of the customer service phone rep industry. That industry is done. We're in those. That guy was talking. The guy who was just talking on the CNN thing. He is, or CNBC. This guy. This live person, right? That's what he does. And he's seeing the potential in ChatGPT to be a tool for his company. And if you take a step back and you start looking at what kind of jobs are like a glorified version of a customer service rep. And I don't mean any pejoratives. I am one of you. I live here and I am going to be affected in the same ways that you are. But the person who takes your order at Burger King, the person who's your bank teller, all these kind of jobs, right? They're gone. They are gradually going to move you over to that kind of thing. You know this to be true when you go to the store, you see the expansion of the self-checkout aisles, and the only reason there's still people to ring you out is for people with large orders, people who are older, more, let's say, traditional, right? They are going to be phased out. You're seeing it happen. There is nothing you can do to fix that. Right? In theory, you could organize your township to only use the people checkouts, live person. And then the automated shit will cost them money and electricity that they don't need to spend. And theoretically, you could, kind of push that back. You can't organize that kind of movement. People aren't going to see how what's at stake for them in that, and they are going to cut corners at the first opportunity. It's just not going to work. Go for it. They're like, if you think you can do it and pull it off, then, go for it. And, if a job can be done by a machine, it is going to be done by a machine. Why would I want a person who could injure themselves on the job moving pop cans, cases, when I can have the robot do it, Automated truck rolls up, sides roll up automatically, little forklifty robot thing lowers itself down, pulls cases off the thing, brings them in, and then it slots them in place. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, look at the way our supermarkets, what up, Professor Q? Look at the way our supermarkets are already structured. Look at the concept of the big box store, right? Like the big box store is pallets of stuff. That market is already primed for automated robot kind of thing. The only, I don't see a point where I still see people going in to get the stuff off pallets because of the concept of impulse buying, right? Word. Read gummies and read. Impulse buying is a thing, right? Whenever you go shopping, if you don't stick to your list, you will impulse buy, right? And that is a significant number. So people will still go into the store and get their food, but the stacking of all this stuff, to have the robots do it. And you can't make me argue for a dude, woman, NB, what have you, a person to do that job. That job sucks ass. So why, what's my framework? The only framework is the money. They need money to survive, but I don't want them doing that job to do it. I don't want people working inside of a Burger King. If you've ever worked fast food like that in the summertime, it's not fun, right? Or you're working at a Wendy's in the wintertime, working the drive-through window, and they have a Wendy's jacket for you to wear, and as far as you can tell, it's never been washed. But your alternative is cold or stinky jacket. What up, Bipedal Meatbag? How long until they're forced to implement some sort of UBI? That is really the question. And this is my problem with why I think capitalists are brain broke. Is because if I was in the position of power, I would have given the people UBI and Medicare for all at this point, right? Like well before this, because if y'all have a little bit of money, right, and y'all have some health care, most of y'all would shut the fuck up. I would shut the fuck up, right? Could be better, but now I'm not so close to fucking starving to death that I'm angry, right? And I'm like, I don't want to overthrow the government. The government sends me food, right? This is how people in general would feel. Maybe not you. Maybe you are uber socialist and like that, but I'm talking about material conditions. If you give people food and a little bit of health care and guaranteed places to live and a couple extra bucks in their pocket, people in general would shut the fuck up. But they haven't done it. And so people don't shut the fuck up. And then they get angry. It's all fine and good until the kid is hungry. Unrelated but related, if you haven't watched The Last of Us, you should start. That show makes me feel stuff every episode. It's fucking amazing. Right? And why that's relevant is there's a spot where the kid is hungry and they only have one can of food left, kind of situation, in the apocalypse. You put people in that situation, they make decisions, they make choices. If you don't give people health care and a reason for them to care about their bodies, the physical form, you can reach a point where, okay, if you don't give a fuck about me, I don't give a fuck about me, and, let's go. Because they don't have an alternative. You need an alternative, right? And comfort is always a good alternative. So, a little bit of money, a little bit of food, place to live, a little bit of comfort. Right? You might still hate capitalism. You might still, think things could be more equitable and everything else. Think we should have fucking more mass transit and head towards that utopia. But at the same time, it ain't bad. But the capitalist powers that be and the machine that runs it is making poor choices, and that bothers me. That concerns me. Because that points in a direction. Things happen. Right? And if all of a sudden, tech fired 200 and some odd thousand people recently. These are clever people who no longer have work. Maybe they get work someplace else because they work in tech. But tech moves fast. And you might not have the spoons and the stones to keep up. And then 2.8 million customer service reps join those numbers. Starbucks says, fuck it. You know what? You want union stores? Fuck it. Robot stores. Deal with it. Do you think that someone who pays $7 for a pumpkin spice latte is going to give a shit if there's a person behind the counter or if they just walk up? They don't even have to walk up. They just use the app, right? They use the app as they're walking in the door or on their way there, or they ordered it from the thing and estimated time of distance. Okay, so I'm at the whatever, wherever people are still working, and I'm going on the coffee run. I use your app. The app uses location systems to measure the distance and time based on my mode of travel between my location and the location of the Starbucks that I'll be going to determine about how long it's going to take to get there. It is going to tell me on there, you should leave around this time. And then when I get there, I've already paid for it. And I just go up and there will be a fucking door that I open that only opens to my code. And I just enter the code and I pull out my drink order and I'm the fuck out the door. Or do you think that person really wants to talk to another human being behind that counter who they are going to bitch about later on Twitter because of how they were rude or whatever? Nothing about that scenario, that app fucking thing scenario, is unreasonable. So fuck your union store. Starbucks is going fully automated. Starbucks goes fully automated. That's Domino's. Not the pizza place, but the pizza place. And every other fast food. If your sandwich is generally the same from move to move, then you are going to love automated Burger King. Right? Boop, boop, boop. Your burger's the same. Boop, boop, boop. Your burger's the same. You've already entered into the app. Oh, no pickles. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop, boop. right? The only issue is to figure out how to get it from the component spaces into one single order. This is an engineering issue. And your pumpkin spice latte will it will be $8.50 because you get convenience taxed. But yeah, they do not reduce prices because things became easier for them, in case you hadn't noticed. Right? Do you go in the store to get gas? Or do you stand by the thing and use the automated card reader? When you go and you buy your coffee or whatever, who puts your card into the machine? Literally any place where you stick your card into the machine by yourself, you can automate that relatively quickly. There will still be one place I know that you'll still be able to get human service, and therefore their jobs are safe, is somewhere in the food spectrum is a point at which the people desire to be served by humans. And everything above that will be human-based. Right? Do you need a person to serve you? If you can afford that, then you will pay for it. And everything below will be automated. Right? Because I guarantee you, that Bezos is going to, if he goes out to eat, there will be humans all the way down. Right? So we skip down a few levels of fancy restaurant. Now it's into is fast casual. Are you going to pay for humans at Applebee's? The question, I guess, partly comes how much food prep is actually done in an Applebee's. I've never worked in an Applebee's, so I don't know. But is it a restaurant back there, or is it pre-made stuff that you heat up? Like a Burger King. Food prep could, if you're turning out more individual things, then that's going to fall into the category of people who want to pay for more individual things, and therefore those people will want to be served by humans. Being served by humans will become a status symbol, as if it hasn't already been forever, but more so. There's those fucking jobs gone. Cops could easily be replaced by robots and automation. Those jobs are gone. It's gonna be wild. See what Mr. Moneybags has to say for the rest of this.
Travel, changing something in the world, insurance or whatever, I think it's going to change there. But what the big impact is that if I'm a marketer, let's say working at a telco, I could go into the machine and say, generate me a new campaign, an advertising campaign, create pictures and copy and video, and the machine will generate that based on the data set that says this is the best way to do it. Versus today, we have to get a whole team of people and we have to build all that. The machine can generate that now, and that's the most exciting thing.
Let me ask you a question. You obviously create AI software that interacts with people. Yeah. How do we know the AI is going to create things that are going to appeal to people? I mean, people obviously have a sense of culture and trends and different things. Will the AI be able to learn all those things?
It is, and that's what ChatGPT did, was through natural language. You just talk the way you do and I do. The machine is interpreting that and talking back to me in a way, and sometimes it hallucinates actually, and that's a term we use, that the machine gives you an answer that seems so perfect, but because you're not an expert in that topic, you don't know it's not perfect. So you can see it today in what's happening. And so you have to be careful with it. And there are things in guardrails, especially bringing it to companies, that I think if we're going to use it in the right way, we have to bring the guardrails. And that's what the next step is.
Speaking of guardrails, you have a T-shirt on. You want to talk about your nonprofit. It's called equalai.org. Give us a quick sense of what equalai.org is about and why it's needed.
So 4 years ago, I co-founded a nonprofit with a woman called Marian Vogel, who worked with President Obama on doing bias training programs for federal government. And we sat down and said, look, if AI becomes pervasive, which it's about to become, there'll have to be guardrails with it. And so this organization works with government. She's on the committee that helps President Biden look at this stuff, and private industry, and figure out how to use this technology so it's not racist, so it's not biased. And she's created a framework, and that organization's done it for everybody.
All right. Really interesting conversation. Again, similar to the Congressman, I think we're really just getting started with this conversation. We appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you for your insight.
I mean, he said it. AI is about to become pervasive. The money says it. Listen to the money. The capitalists will only hide their hand so much. Generally, they will tell you exactly what they are going to do.
Listen, I mean, are you privy to any kind of special information?
We're doing some heavy CNBC, but they're talking about it.
Listen, I mean, are you privy to any kind of special information about this situation? As a CEO of this leading cybersecurity company, what's going through your mind as you're watching all of these reports and trying to process it all?
Sure. Well, there certainly are cybersecurity concerns. When you look at the equipment that may be found and when we get a...
Real quick, before we get into this, related to all the balloons, right? Like, there was nothing, and then there was the Chinese balloon, and now they're fucking everywhere. NORAD et al., anyone with radar facing the sky was running with filters on to prevent low-level, slow-flying traffic from cluttering up their radars. And because somebody got a bug up their ass because of the Chinese fucking balloon, they turned those filters off. So now they just started seeing a lot more shit, which was always up there. If you know anything about space is filled with fucking garbage already, and it's a fucking problem that will only get worse. There's a whole thing about what can happen when too much shit gets up there and then we never get to leave the planet again. But we'll earn that, so cool. But there's all sorts of shit that flies through the skies. There's only certain places in the sky you can't go. You know? So, like, you got people firing off little rockets to do things, balloons, all sorts of shit. And just a bunch of that shit is showing up on radar now. So and now they have to deal with it because somebody got a bug up their ass. So it's not aliens. It's not World War III. Somebody just turned off the filters.
A final report on what equipment was being carried on board with these objects. We'll know a lot more about what type of communications may have been intercepted, what type of information may have been collected. And so certainly it is cause for concern.
Right. So, I mean, the problem is with premise, right? If the premise is this was definitely a spy balloon, then I could ask you a bunch of questions. If the premise is, it just drifted off course, or, hey, this has been happening for a while, and we're really only wising up to it, they just point in such different areas. What would be your main questions if you had a chance to examine these objects?
Yeah, well, I think the question is, they were drifting off course and over very sensitive areas, so that seems highly unlikely. And the things we would want to know about these objects are more about the communications equipment that was on them. What sorts of sensing equipment?
There are so many sensitive areas in the United States that it drifting over a sensitive area was actually a high probability. Like, if it's describing an arc across the United States, it's going to run over shit. It's a high probability that you will. Is there nothing? Well, there's probably nukes in the ground. Is there something? Well, how far away is a military base from your house? Even if it's a National Guard base, right? Like, and you can get, you can extrapolate from there. Like, where do you live in the country is also going to determine, like, the concentration of federal agencies in your area. If you happen to live close to a border like I do, we got a bunch of fucking shit in the city, like, FBI and Border Patrol and there's probably CIA there somewhere for some reason. So everywhere in the United States is sensitive. So
are they able to intercept? What are they able to intercept? What were the things of greatest interest? What were the signals of greatest interest to the adversaries?
You know as well as anybody what information people can get through the internet, let's say, through hacking physical infrastructure and that sort of thing. Why a spy balloon? What can an aerial image or aerial surveillance offer that perhaps current firewalls or internet systems aren't allowing someone to penetrate in order to get at that kind of price information they might be looking for?
If you have physical proximity, you can do a lot of things that are much easier to do than trying to do them at a distance. So you could mimic cell towers, you could mimic communications equipment, you can intercept communications and understand what content is going through. So any sensitive information, any information about operations, any information and telemetry about what's occurring in that area, how systems are configured, those would be the types of things which you could intercept and really understand with a...
To an extent, this is all correct. However, there are significant portions of United States infrastructure that functions on very old technology. Like, some of it fucking like Windows 98, Windows 3.1 level, because they never needed it to do anything more than it was doing. That older technology also like limits what is acquired from it, right? Just by the nature of it cannot communicate in such a particular way that it also can't have that information communicated from it.
hardware or anything that from China from a supply chain perspective. We believe fundamentally that every organization has the right to understand their cyber risk and to know what they can do to better protect themselves. And so to that end, to the extent that people feel threatened or feel like they need to increase their cybersecurity spending as a result of a spy balloon, then that's fine. But I think the fundamental premise, whether there's a spy balloon or not, is that the internet is a dangerous place and that organizations really need to understand, enterprises really need to understand what is at risk for them and how they can better protect themselves.
Final, I don't know if this is too much of a pivot, but in this sort of frenzy that we're having right now over new AI technologies, which are going to be deployed in enterprise with language capabilities to sort of scrape data and use it the way we're currently using the internet, what does that mean for a firm like yours? How do you make sure that you protect that data, maybe protect it from getting disrupted in some way? I'm just curious how big a deal you think this technology is.
Well, AI holds great promise. At Tenable, we use artificial intelligence to help understand what pieces of software and where vulnerabilities might be exploited. It helps our researchers provide better products and better capabilities to our customers. I think when you talk about general purpose AIs being broadly available, I think we're in very dangerous territory. I think we're going to see the doom and gloom and dark side of AI much sooner than people anticipated.
Why?
We don't have very good ethical models around how these technologies could and should be developed, and we have almost no control over them. So if you look at ChatGPT as an example, it's already been jailbroken. It's already outside the box. So it's accessing internet data. They have a jailbroken version called Do Anything Now, where they bypass the controls that we thought were in place. And so when you start collecting information, when you start tapping into the wealth of information on the internet, when you start tapping into social media, and you combine that with an advanced AI, really dangerous things can happen.
Do you think they should be shut down?
Well, I'm not going to stand here and say we should shut this particular AI down or that particular AI.
I mean, it's comical to even ask.
Individual investors are chasing.
Oh, interesting. That was an interesting cut. This is a happy-looking person. Yeah, just should it be shut down? Well, I'm not going to point to a particular company, but it's. So, yeah. I mean, they're telling you, they're talking about this, like they're on the cusp. And we are, in fact, on the cusp of okay, so this is an article from The Atlantic. You got to subscribe to read it. So we'll just take what we can get out of the article. So this is Frederick Pinto, whatever they're about. Could be this guy. Yeah, that's them. Fred's been an IP technology and transactional lawyer and entrepreneur, focusing on the needs of founders, whatever that is, for over 15 years. Writer and editor for peer-reviewed law journals. So it sounds like he knows what he's talking about in reference to business law. And this is the only article he's written. The system for granting asylum in the U.S. has long been a political point of contention. Democrats and Republicans debate how liberal or restrictive its rules should be, but evidence suggests that the fate of some asylum seekers may be less influenced by the rules than by something far more arbitrary, the judge they're assigned to. A 2007 study titled Refugee on one hand, it could make things more fair for the people who, on the probability wheel, are assigned to judges who would rule against them. But that would also, on the other end, affect the people who are judged by a more generous judge. Right? Like, one of the things that people complain about sometimes, one of the things, in my personal experience, I've never taken, drugs for like depression or medication for depression or anything else like that. But I did once take, for a period of time, St. John's wort, which is like your herbal remedy on that scale. And it does do a certain extent of that, right? It is a natural Prozac, but less intense. In my personal experience, I'm not giving you health advice, and I'm not saying that you should take St. John's wort. I am saying it only my personal story. But what I didn't like about it is not only did it, like, my lows were not as low, but my highs were not as high, and I enjoyed my body as regulating itself better now, but I enjoyed the highs, right? If you are one of those types of people, you know what I'm talking about. And you might not enjoy your highs, right? Or you might. And if you are on medication, you might miss those highs. But if you're on medication, it's probably something you should be doing, but maybe you might want to adjust your dosage. You should probably talk to your doctor or a medical professional about that. Again, I'm not giving medical advice or nutritional advice. I'm just talking about my own experience. So an AI system would have much lower levels of fuzzy logic. And what kind of fuzzy logic it would have would be based purely on the data sets we give to it. What up, Lenny? So I'm ultimately, I would find standing in front of a judge, which I have done, and standing in front of an AI judge, which I haven't, to be about the same fundamental thing. This is a person who like is going to make a decision that is going to fundamentally affect my life in some way, and I hope that it goes in my direction. But there's not a lot that you can do in those circumstances. So it wouldn't affect me. However, again, we're talking about data sets. If your data sets are flawed, and right now, as far as I can tell, most of the data sets are flawed, then this is going to lead to predictable outcomes that are not good. So right now, definitely no AI judges. In the future, show me your data set. I think we got the point. I'll post the link here in the Discord if you want to see the names of the companies that people are talking about, so you can follow them. But yeah, this is right here. This headline: retail investors flock to AI stocks. Yes, this tells you that the money is going there. Once the funding is in place, the technology will follow. It will be varying degrees of quality, and we'll have to wait and see on what we actually end up with. This one I wanted to look at. This is from 5 years ago. This is from January of 2018. This is Intel Software talking about AI 5 years ago. And I thought that this would be an interesting comparative exercise.
Hi, I'm David Shaw, and welcome to AI News. A very happy new year to all, and welcome to 2018. In this episode,
and this is Intel. Intel, they are a well-known company, so, I would assume that what they're saying is going to be an informed statement.
we discover the world's first neural network processor, take a look at a new deep learning edge solution, and explore Unity Technologies ML agents exclusively on Intel architecture. Don't forget to check out the links provided to learn more. Intel is launching its first family of processors designed from the ground up for AI, the Intel Nirvana Neural Network Processor. It's a purpose-built architecture for deep learning. The goal is to provide the needed flexibility to support all deep learning primitives while making core hardware components as efficient as possible. This processor also has a new memory architecture and is designed to maximize the utilization of silicon computation. In addition, it can achieve a new level of scalability for AI models. Discover a deep learning edge solution that pairs the Raspberry Pi 3 single board computer with the Intel Movidius Neural Compute Stick. This article will show you how to increase the Pi 3 performance for computing inference using Google's MobileNets. Learn how to install and run Unity Technologies machine learning agents in CPU-only environments from this article. It will teach you how to train ANS to run the ML agents balance balls example on Windows, perform a TensorFlow CMake build on Windows optimized for Intel AVX2, and create a simple Amazon Web Services Ubuntu machine image environment from scratch. Additionally, it will show you how to build a headless version of balance balls for Linux. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Intel Software YouTube channel.
Now, if you're like me, you understood like every 1 in 4 or 5 words there. Because we're not in the industry and we are separated. If I could have Computer come in and translate whatever the fuck that man just said. But the point of that is that 5 years ago, Intel had what this indicates is a more advanced architecture for running neural nets and for artificial intelligence. That is what takes us into things like what we're seeing today. Not like everything is built around the Intel stuff, but if Intel is doing it, other people are doing it too. So we're seeing the fruition of those evolutions between 5 years ago and today. I used to get Pix on cable, right? Pix 11, New York City. I used to get Pix on cable, and kids would call in. Yeah, no, like, he said a whole lot of things, and I understood a couple of them to know that they were words. I'm with you, Letty. But Pix was kids would call into Pix, right? Like their after school thing. And like they would play games over the phone. And it would show up on the TV. And it was like really simple, like they would change the direction of this ball as it was bouncing. The ball would be moving and they would say Pix and it would change direction, that kind of thing. And that's what I remember about Pix is like, here are kids. They're like me, you know, and they're calling in to this thing and playing games. But yeah, here's the future of artificial intelligence in New York City.
The light bulb, the telephone, the automobile, inventions that change the world.
Bro, what is this leftist audio? Holy shit. This is not old. This is like from yesterday.
Still touch our lives every day. Now, another tech revolution is underway, but it's one you might miss if you're not paying attention. Artificial intelligence, or AI, computer systems that are basically trained to process, learn, and even communicate like people. This award-winning artwork, created by AI. This children's story, written and illustrated by AI. This Apple audiobook narrator.
I lay there listening to my own breathing and feeling my chest move up and down.
Not the voice of a human, that's AI. Amazing, frightening, dangerous, depends on who you ask.
It exists today in ways...
Okay. So this is our data set, right? Our data set is what is the intention of the mood trying to be produced by this news report. All right. And this is our data set. We have 3 points. Amazing, frightening, dangerous. We generally agree that 2 out of these 3 words are negative and one of these words is positive. So this tells you right here that the intent behind the emotion that you are supposed to feel. And I'm not saying that they tell any lies or anything else, but this is part of media literacy, is to listen to the actual words that are being said and to estimate what kind of emotion I am intended to feel. And then there's the music in the background.
You ask.
It exists today in ways that you can't even comprehend. We're not at the levels of Terminator 2 quite yet, right? But we're getting there.
Peter Shankman is a so-called futurist in residence at Blue Shark Digital.
Let's hope you're not a lawyer suing someone at Madison Square Garden. Because if you are, they're going to see your face and you're not getting it. Okay? If you are within 10 blocks of a crime being committed, they're going to scan every camera in the area with facial recognition software, see if they recognize you. There are some airports in Europe right now where you walk in, it grabs your facial recognition, and if you look up at a board that might have hundreds of flights on it, all you see is yours.
The implications of this technology are wide-ranging, as are the ethical concerns. Now, the city of New York is trying to curb at least one form of AI abuse with a law that could impact your career.
The desire of the city was to give employees
notice.
Evan Piercy is an attorney who focuses on employment issues, like the brand new Local Law 144. New York City's first of its kind legislation requires city employers to be transparent about their use of AI in hiring and promotions, and audit their systems for bias.
It presents employers with a set of affirmative requirements that they must do before implementing these tools and while they're implementing these tools.
Okay, so this is about using resume sorting software, right? Like, this is not an important distinction. I mean, it is good to look to prevent bias. That's exactly what I'm talking about every time I'm talking about the data sets. However, by the same token, this is not going to protect anyone's job.
Tools. What people need to remember is the artificial part of artificial intelligence. It is all dependent on the instructions provided by humans, built by humans.
In 2018, Amazon had to roll back a secret AI recruiting tool because it was found to show a bias against women. There have also been multiple examples of AI systems picking up racial prejudices as well.
I do believe a lot of companies will try it, and they will dive headfirst into it because they believe that, oh, well, we'll save money and we'll get people and you know, computers are the future. And they're going to get bitten for it.
Perhaps the biggest concern for workers is whether these new advanced systems will eliminate their jobs altogether, with some major corporations already using AI to generate content. So, what's next? I decided to go straight to the source.
Will you take away all of our jobs?
I asked the increasingly popular ChatGPT AI system.
It is unlikely that AI will take away all jobs, but it may change the nature of work and potentially automate certain tasks. Some jobs may become obsolete, while new jobs may be created as a result of AI and automation. It's important for society to proactively plan and adapt to these changes.
Again, media literacy, qualifiers. If the sentence you're reading is not definitive, if it uses may, could, should, probably, any kind of qualifier that changes the weight significantly, right? I could walk out of this room and, you know, have a stroke. It is unlikely, but I could.
Changes in order to mitigate negative impacts and maximize benefits.
How do you feel about that?
We had the Industrial Revolution, which took some jobs and created new jobs. Cars took away horses and buggies. There was a whole uproar about that. AI is certainly going to automate certain white-collar tasks because it can simply synthesize information better.
Now, it's a lot to take in, but as they say, knowledge is power. The city's new AI law went into effect at the start of the year, but the city's Department of Consumer and Worker Protection is actually finalizing the rules right now, so enforcement will begin in the coming months.
You are Cell.
So yeah, and again, while that law is a good law and it should exist, right? Any way we can, you know, legislate to prevent bias, it is generally preferable to not legislating to prevent bias. See everything that says race, creed, color, sex, sexual orientation, presentation, any of that language in it. Those are protections. Codified protections. Right? That exist to put a legal tool in the hands of protecting those. Like that's what those kind of protections come down to, right? Is that you are still reliant on the law. Otherwise, those are just as meaningless as any other words. But that's not a law that's going to prevent jobs from being your option would be to legislate against technological advance. And even if you think that's a good idea, how are you gonna sell that to the people who codify laws? Right? What grounds are you going to make that argument on? That's going to change their mind. Like it's multiple levels of difficulty, right? You have to form a good solid argument, and then you have to sell it to people who have an interest in not listening to you. And again, you could organize your town to only use the people checkouts at the store. And it's fundamentally the same thing. So if you can do that, again, that's a low probability exercise in my opinion, but do you, boo. I got nothing but support for you. We're going to finish off with a Kyrgyzstats, kind of related to the, idea of the nature of what is it to be the biological human in all this. And it's brand new. It just came out like yesterday.
You are cells. Your muscle.
One more time.
You are cells. Your muscles, organs, skin, and hair. They are in your blood and in your bones. Cells are biological robots. They don't want anything. They don't feel anything. They are never sad or happy. They just are, right here, right now. They're as conscious as a stone or a chair or a neutron star. Cells just follow their programming that's been evolving and changing for billions of years, molded by natural selection. They are impossible machines, and yet, here they are, driven entirely by the fundamental forces of the universe. The smallest unit of life, right at the border where physics becomes biology. Sometimes, to get a truer understanding of how amazing something is, you need to hold your breath and dive in really deep. So, what are cells, and how do they work?
The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Look around the room you're sitting in right now. Let's fill it top to bottom with trillions of grains of sand, billions of grains of rice, hundreds of thousands of grapes, a few thousand apples, and a dozen watermelons. This is what the inside of your cells looks like. In terms of numbers, they're mostly filled up with water molecules, the grains of sand. Water gives the cell's insides the consistency of soft jelly and enables other things to move around easily. Almost all the other things, the rice and fruit, are proteins. Several billion in total, more than 10,000 different kinds, depending on the function of the cell. Your cells are basically protein robots, as is all life really. In fact, all solid non-fat parts of your body are mostly made out of protein, even your bones. Proteins are dead things that make life happen. How does this work? The language of life. Cells need to do many very hard things to stay alive. Get food in and waste out, grow and build structures, escape danger or react to stimuli, make
I think we're good.
If you put many of these protein words together, you get a sentence called a biological pathway. Let's oversimplify a bit and say, for example, your cell needs to break down sugar with the language of life. It may take the amino acids for the letters B, R, E, A, and K to form the protein word break. Then combine this word with other protein words to form a biological pathway sentence that means break down sugar. In reality, this language of life is so complex that it defies imagination. You need to know about 8,000 words to speak a human language really well. But in the language of life, there are an estimated 20,000. And while the average English word has 5 letters, human proteins have an average of 375 amino acids. The longest protein has more than 30,000. And cells need to execute thousands of steps at any moment. If they ever stop speaking the language of life, they die. Okay, but how do mindless cells speak a language this complex? Let's dive a little deeper. There are 21 amino acids that can be combined to form proteins. And proteins are made up of dozens to hundreds to thousands of amino acids. For the average protein length of a human cell of 375 amino acids, you get a stunning 6.8 times 10 to the power of 495 possible proteins your cells can make. A quadrillion googol. And this is the job of your DNA, a long sequence of instructions. If you untangled a cell's DNA, it would be about 2 meters long. All of your body's DNA combined into one long string would reach to the sun and back over 20 times. Around 1% of your DNA is made up of genes, which are basically protein dictionaries that contain all the words of the language of life your cells speak. But genes are also the building manuals for all the proteins your cells need to function. The rest of your DNA is probably not useless, but basically like a set of rules. It's like the book of grammar of the language of life. Which proteins need to be built at which time? How many of them do you need? Which protein words go together and why? Okay, letters, words, sentences, dictionary, and grammar. But of course, this is all just a metaphor for something mind-numbingly complex. Let's dive a little deeper to catch a glimpse of reality. How dead proteins make life. Now that we have some basic principles, we have a chance to understand how dead things make life together. And for that, we need a fundamental force of the universe, electromagnetism. The elementary particles that make up atoms, which make up amino acids, have different charges that attract or repel each other. The 21 different amino acids all have slightly different charges. Some are more negative, others more positive. When your cells build proteins...
What up, Carpe? Yeah, we're all robots. We just define it differently than silica-based AI robots.
They put different amino acids together in chains, basically long strings. Now, because of the different charges of the amino acids used, these strings begin
So that's your reference point.
Still haven't completely understood how exactly it works, but in a nutshell, 1D strings become 3D structures. Proteins are basically 3D puzzle pieces with a very specific shape. In the world of proteins, shape is everything. Because its 3D shape determines which areas of a protein are charged in which way, and this determines how it can interact with other proteins. All of these differently charged puzzle pieces can snap together or repel each other. When they snap together, their charge changes, which can make them change their shape, which then makes them a new protein, a new tool that can do new things. This is what makes proteins so incredibly powerful. You can do basically everything with them. They can snap together like Lego pieces, protein, which acts as an antidote to the toxin. This cascade of interaction is the pathway we spoke about earlier, a sentence in the steps. How life operates is so incredibly awe-inducing. Somehow, mind-numbingly complex interactions between dumb and dead proteins create a less dumb and less dead cell. Somewhere around here, life happens, but we still don't know what life is. How dumb things are smart together. We need another analogy, so let's talk about ants. Ants share a fundamental property with cells: they are really dumb. A single ant will just stumble around uselessly. But if you put a lot of ants together, they exchange information and do amazing things. Constructing complex structures, organizing themselves, caring for broods, or attacking enemies. Although dumb individually, together they become something greater. This phenomenon occurs all over nature and is called emergence. It's the observation that entities have properties and abilities that their parts do not have. This is how everything in your body works. Your cells are bags of proteins guided by chemistry. But together, these proteins form a living being that can do a lot of really sophisticated things. Cells are mindless robots that are even dumber than ants, but many of them acting together form specialized tissue and organ systems, from muscles that make your heart beat to brain cells that make you think. If you look outside at the incredible dimension and scale of space, a place where forever is a real thing, it's almost impossible not to feel a bit small, not special. But if you look inside into what you really are,
guys into someone new, but this is becoming annoying. Ugh. I think we're good. I think you guys caught up. You did. Okay. So we're gonna raid Lisa Cuthbert Live. It's a whole vibe. Just a great experience, and I'll see you all again tomorrow. And hopefully, I got this drop frames issue fixed. Yeah, no, 100%, Lenny. Lenny, I think you might like this. They're a musician, and I know you vibe on that level. But check them out. Stick around for the raid. Be good, Raiders, chatters. In the meantime, eat something, drink your water, take your meds if you forgot. Shuggy loves you. So do I.